Hello everyone, and welcome back to Steel Forest Welding and Forge. Today, my friends, I have a special video for you today. Today, we're going to be doing a review of the Bestarc BTC500DP plasma cutter. Now, the reason this video is so special, at least for me, is because this unit was sent out by the fine folks at Bestarc for me to review at no cost to myself. I do these videos, it's mostly a labor of love. I do these to share my knowledge and because I enjoy making them. I always thought it'd be kind of fun if people eventually sent me stuff to review for them. I didn't actually think it would ever happen though. But here we go. So I'm really excited about this video today. Let's go ahead and get started with the unboxing. Packaged very nicely. Well, we got this guy here. I'll bet this is probably the lead and the grounding clamp. Here's the unit itself. First impressions, not too bad. It's a pretty small unit, very compact. Looks like it has the 220 line attached right now. Feels fairly heavy. Doesn't really have a cheap feel to it. Those knobs feel kind of nice. All right, yeah, not bad. Shell seems very similar to my titanium plasma cutter. Let's set that off to the side. All right, so here looks like we got the cutting lead. Instructions. Here's the grounding clamp. No, it's a little thicker than like your kind of heavy-duty household electrical cord or extension cord. Clamp itself, it's pretty lightweight, as you can see there. Looks like this was made by stamping some steel. Got good springs on there. That's definitely going to hold on to something pretty tight, not pull off too easy. And it has a feature that I do like as well. This ground here where the nut comes from has this copper jumper that goes from jaw to jaw. Some cutters and some welders don't have this feature. And this makes it so that no matter how you have this on a surface, like let's say the bottom of this was painted, the top is unpainted. No matter how you put this on here, even if you're touching a painted surface with where the lead attaches, you're still going to get a good ground. There is the 220 to 110 adapter. And here looks like we have some consumables in here as well as some thread tape. I'm assuming these are the electrodes and the covers and some hose clamps. Line here, I'm assuming this is for an air line. That's a pretty nice handle. That's not too bad. I'd say this is comparable to the titanium plasma cutter I have. It does feel well made. Doesn't feel cheap. Looks like we have a separate connection for, I'm guessing, the ground, the air, and the power. So that's the way it goes. Again, I would say this line is probably comparable to the titanium plasma cutter. I would recommend definitely getting a lead cover for this one as well. I wouldn't trust this thing to take too much damage, and I would want to protect it if it was in my shop. So I would get definitely get a leather cover for this. Looks like this was made for dragging. This looks pretty round. I do kind of like how this attached one, it's got a little bit of play in there. It's not bad. I do kind of like how it's slightly more encompassing than the drag tip on my titanium plasma cutter. That is, a chore to get off of there. Wow. Okay, I'm sure I can get that off if I really want to. I think I'll just leave that on for now. So this cup here, that almost looks like alumina, kind of like what they have for TIG welders. It looks like this is the, here's the electrode right here. And that looks like it screws in. There's a flat spot on there to take it off. It doesn't look like there's a removable starter cartridge on this. You know, there's your tip there. That screws on as well. That feels pretty secure on there. Definitely some different looking electrodes and tips. A little bit different, but I see no problem with them. This little guy right here, I'm not really sure what this, oh, it looks like this is a little wrench for attaching everything. So there you go. There is the unboxing. First impressions. Seems like a pretty decent unit. So we'll go ahead, read the instructions, get it all hooked up, and then we'll do some test cutting, and we'll see how she does. All right, so I've read through the instructions. Let's go ahead and get this thing all hooked up. All right, looks like there is a little groove here. Faces down for that connection. Fits pretty snug. Then this cap, little nub on there, that'll face down, righty-tighty. And looks like we got that all set up. Let's get the air hooked up. Everything is plugged in and ready to go. Let's fire this little guy up. Well, there we go. Looks like we got some nice digital settings here. Okay, let's horse around a little bit. So that's kind of nice. So it looks like if you want to check your air pressure, you can hit that button. Air pressure comes out of here. Amperage. I am currently on 220. Power supply. So we have range from 50 all the way to 15. I gotta say, this is a very nice screen here. 2T, 4T. I'm not quite sure what that means. You can see here, 220. PT, PA. Gonna have to double check the instructions, see what that means. All right, well, let's just give it a quick little demo here to make sure we get an arc. Oh yeah, whoa, that is immediate. All right, fan's kicking on. That fan is only supposed to run when it needs to cool down. All right, I'm gonna double check the instructions again, and then we are going to do some test cutting here. Okay, so I've reread the instructions. Now, the instructions are written in English, but they are translated a little rough. However, I'm still able to understand them. So, the question for the 2T and the 4T setting, it's explained in the instructions. 2T means you pull the trigger, arc starts, let go of the trigger, arc stops. 4T, this is designed for long cutting. Pull the trigger, arc starts, let go, arc continues until you pull the trigger again, and then the arc stops. This is your post time for airflow and pilot arc. Now, pilot arc, I'm not quite sure what that is. I think that may be the amount of time between pulling the trigger and the arc starts. I'm not exactly sure. The way the instructions read is, quote, PT equals post time, time for post air, PA equals pilot arc time. And there is no other explanation or definition for what pilot arc time is in here. That would be something I would say probably should be explained a little bit more. I'm a fairly experienced person, and I'm not quite sure myself what that means. Now, even though these instructions do have a rough translation, again, I want to emphasize that for the most part, they're understandable, so not bad. All right, now that we have that explained, we're going to go through, do some test cutting, and we're just going to use the settings that actually come in the manual. All right, so here's the plan. We're going to do something very similar to what I did for my review of my titanium plasma cutter. We're going to cut a series of different plates, all going up to different thicknesses. Here we have 1/8 inch, 3/16, 1/4 inch, and this is 1/2 inch bar. Now, this bar right here is going to be the test to how good this machine is. We are going to be pushing this machine to its limits on the 220 setting. I want to emphasize that many garages or hobby shops don't have a 220 voltage outlet like I do. Most of me are running at 110. So we're running this on the 220 setting. So up to about here, and maybe 1/4 inch is going to be probably the limit for you home hobbyists. Then up to 1/2 inch for more of the professionals. So we're going to go ahead, start with our cutting with our 1/8 inch plate. I want to emphasize too, for safety, that while I'm not running any filtration systems right now, I do have a smoke eater. And when I do heavy plasma cutting, I do run my smoke eater. Plasma cutting creates a lot, and I mean a lot of debris. Don't want to be breathing that in. For this video and purposes, we'll be running without it going, because otherwise it's just too loud. What we're going to do, set it at 50 psi, 20 amps. The recommendation from the manufacturer is 30 psi to 50 psi, 20 amperage for 1/8 inch material. So we're going to go ahead and try this and see how this goes. All right, here we go. All right, not quite there. Let's try this one more time. I do seem to be having a problem here. So I had assumed this here was so I could drag my plate across, my torch across my plate. Seems like it's sitting a little bit too low, where my tip is actually touching the plate and I can feel it sticking to it, hence kind of this motion. This time I'm not going to be dragging this across the plate. I'll be hovering it slightly. All right, no problem. Went right through it. Quite a lot of dross on there. So it looks like we need to speed up. All right, looks like I went a little too fast. There we go. Okay, still some dross there. Takes a little bit of effort to get off. This time I'm going to go as fast as I can across that plate. Went a little too fast there. Let's turn our amperage up to 30. Let's see what that does. That's better. Okay, there we go. See there? Virtually no dross. Blew right through, no problem. All right, let's go to 3/16. So let's try it at the 44 psi and 30 amps setting we had it before and see what we get. Okay, let's try that again. Let's go a little slower. A lot of dross on there. Let's go ahead and bump that up to 35. Didn't quite get all the way through there at the beginning. There we go. Still kind of a lot of dross on there, but it cut it, and you can definitely work that off. All right, now we're getting into plate territory. Let's try this 1/4 inch plate. They recommend 30 amps, 40 to 50 psi. Let's go ahead and turn our torch up to 50 psi. And they recommend 30 amps. We're at 35. We're going to leave it right there and see what happens. All right, that was a pretty bad cut on my part. I wasn't paying attention. Didn't go all the way through. Let's try it again. This time I'm going to slow way down. I went pretty slow that time and barely got through. Okay, so a lot of dross there. To me, if I did that at the shop, I'd say, it's too much. We definitely got to turn our amperage up. Let's do that. We're at 35. Let's go to 40. Quick look at our consumables. Our tip is actually getting quite clogged up. No problem. Much better. Still quite a bit of dross on there. Look at that, comes right off. Tell you what, let's try this one more time. And let's crank this thing up to 45 amps. Now that cut nice. That felt like a good cut. Dross comes off very nice. We're going to go ahead and crank this up to 50 amps. We are now currently maxed out on this machine. Oh, went a little too fast there. Let's try again. There we go. There, look at that. Almost no dross on there now. It's much better. And it comes right off. So let's go ahead and crank this thing up to 70 PSI. I gotta say, I love having that regulator knob and that cut option. That's very nice. Again, for the home hobbyists, we are currently out of the spectrum for the 110 capability. Now, if this thing's been following the trend, I suspect that it will. We're probably gonna have to go pretty slow. We're gonna end up with a lot of dross, but I think we're still gonna end up with a decent cut. That guy was definitely struggling, but we made it through. So, you can see quite a bit of dross there. But hey, it came right off. If we look at that cut up close, you can see how all those lines on the plasma cutter are fairly straight. All right, I think I got to recut that first part there. There we go. I try to get a little creative. Ugh. A lot of dross again. That took a little bit of effort. So if you look at our top cut and our bottom, you can kind of see how the way those striations kind of wandered, how that affects your final cut. But still, we went all the way through, and that first straight cut was really nice. You can definitely kind of see the limits of this machine right now. So, there's your 1/2 inch. What we're going to do now, we're going to go back to some 1/8 inch material. Oh, this is more like 332. We're going to do some fancy cutting here. We're just going to try and fly through it at a fairly high cutting amperage and air pressure and see how creative we can get here. So we'll take it down to 15 amps and we'll go all the way down to 40 PSI, which we are there. This will be a little bit difficult because I can't actually rest my cup here on this tube, or on this tube, on this plate. You can see definitely a couple places where it was struggling. Didn't quite go all the way through. Let's try that again. We'll go up to 20 amps and we'll burn up our plier handles. Definitely cutting better. That's definitely a more appropriate cut setting for that. Okay, so there you go. A little bit of dross, not too bad. Whew, does not want to come off though. Good Lord. All right. But as you can see, we can take that, bend it out. You know, this is probably going to be kind of closer to what the home hobbyist would be cutting for material. So there's a little spiral for you. All right, so that's it for the demonstration here. I'm going to go ahead and shut everything down and I'll give my final thoughts on this tool. So here are my final thoughts on the Bestarc plasma cutter. So first off, power-wise, I'm fairly impressed. This guy runs for $240 currently on Amazon. And for $240, you're getting a plasma cutter that if you have a 220 power supply can cut half-inch material. I mean, that's pretty good. That's good enough for the home hobbyist and the professional. Now, as far as the big perks to this that I like, I am in love with this LCD screen. It's gorgeous. Gives you a lot of good information. I love how I have the option to push this button and go to the cut setting and the air setting. The air setting lets me check my airflow, and I can adjust it with this knob right here. I don't have to go back and forth between my compressor. That is a lovely feature. I really like that. Now, the other thing that I really like about this machine too is how small it is. I mean, you're getting a lot of power for a pretty small machine. The thermodynamics machine, for example, is quite a bit bigger than this. Now, that is probably one of the best plasma cutters you can buy on the market, but you're looking at spending like $2,000. You knock a whole zero off that, and that's how much this guy is. So we have the 110 supply again for the home hobbyist, and as you can see, for what the home hobbyist needs done, which I would assume would be more along the lines of art, it's perfectly suitable for that. There's an option on here I missed when I was first looking at this lead, and you have this kind of ball attachment here on the end of your cutting head, and I really like that. It makes this a lot more flexible. The grounding clamp, to be honest, it's a little bit thin. Something like this I could see stepping on it or hitting it with something heavy, and you might damage it a little bit, but it's not bad. It's got plenty of strength. Now, as far as what I don't like about this machine, to be honest, it's not much, and they're kind of small things. My biggest complaint is this bracket that's on here. I'm not really sure what purpose this serves. It's really hard to get on and off, and I can't drag my nozzle with it on here. If this was maybe just 1/8 of an inch longer, it would be a perfect drag tip. I would have no complaints about that at all. But as it currently is, all it does is kind of get in the way while I'm looking at my cut. So in the future, when I use this again, I'll probably take this off. Now, the consumables for this guy, you can also find online on Amazon, to which I'll put a link to below in the description. For $34, you get 5 of these cups. You get 20 electrodes and tips, 5 of these brackets for $35. Okay, that is crazy. Even if you go through these consumables like butter, that's nothing as far as cost goes. For comparison, for my titanium plasma cutter, you have to buy the tips and the electrodes separately, and they come in packs of 5. And each one of those packs is $25. So if you want to buy 5 electrodes and 5 tips, you're looking at spending $50. Now, as far as how well the electrodes and the consumables held up, we can see right there, the cup on this took just a little bit of a beating, but you saw in real time how all that came out. The electrode here, it's got a little bit of that damage just from regular use. The way I gauge how much my electrodes are worn down by how large this hole is here in the middle that's created from the arc. Once that hole gets to be a decent size, you know it's time to throw it away. But this thing is barely damaged at all. So these electrodes and consumables look like they last for a while. So no cause for concern there. So, in conclusion, would I recommend this machine to the home hobbyist and the professional? Yes. However, there is one caveat to that. As far as how durable this machine is, I can't attest to that. Only time will tell. I mean, I would like to say that it seems like it's a good machine. It seems like you'll get some good use out of it, but I don't know. This would be one disadvantage to buying a machine like this that comes from overseas. There's no actual store to go in and buy this. If this machine breaks, might be a bit of a process returning it. I don't know. I've never dealt with Bestarc's customer service. I mean, they sent me a free machine, so I can't really complain. Now, comparing the cost of this to my titanium 45 plasma cutter from Harbor Freight, that plasma cutter is about $900 when it's not on sale. $800 when it does go on sale. So, between those two machines, the only real advantage I see is the titanium plasma cutter does have more power to it. I like the drag tip on it, but that's about it. As far as the other advantages go, this machine does seem to have them. Has a better screen on it. Again, I love the screen. It's a lot easier to adjust the machine. It's a little bit smaller. And other than the drag tip, I don't really have that many complaints about it. So if you are interested in purchasing one of these guys, I will have a link to the Amazon as well as Bestarc's homepage down below in the description. Thanks again to the fine folks at Bestarc who sent this machine out to me again for no cost. I really appreciate it. And it's definitely going to find a home in my garage. It's always nice to have 2 machines in case something happens. So folks, that does it for today's video. Please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that thumbs up button. Again, channel keeps growing, which is fantastic. Thanks for everything you folks have done for me. And work hard and stay humble.